Later in the day, I spent right now I saw the
The time being 1 p.m., I call this meeting of the Sullivan County Delegation to order. And I'd like to begin by having Representative Oxenham lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Representative Oxenham. Okay, now I'd like to begin by going around the room and having all the members of the delegation, and then when that's done, the commissioners and the other elected officials introduce themselves. So I'm going to begin by turning it over to my Vice Chair, Representative Sullivan, please.
Representative Brian Sullivan, Sullivan District 1, which is Plainfield, Cornish, Grantham, and Springfield.
Representative Judy Aaron, representing Sullivan County District 7, which is the towns of Ackworth, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Gary Merchant, Sullivan County District 4, which is Ward 2 in Claremont, New Hampshire.
Don't try. Sue try again. Sue Gottling, representing Sullivan District 2, Sunapee, and Croydon.
Representative Walter Stapleton, Sullivan District 5, representing Claremont Ward 3.
John Callum, representing Sullivan 6, Unity, and Newport.
Representative Lee Oxenham, also representing District 1 with Plainfield, Springfield, Grantham, and Cornish.
And then I guess to Representative Smith, and now I'm going to go to the other elected officials.
Representative Stephen Smith, Sullivan 11, Ackworth, Charlestown, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington.
Representative Carrie Spilsbury, representing Sullivan District 8 for Charlestown.
Representative Skip Rollins, representing District 6, Newport Unity.
Representative Andrew Hearns, Sullivan 3, Claremont Ward 1.
And again, I'm Representative John Cloutier, representing Sullivan District 10 at the moment, which comprises the entire city of Claremont. So now I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Board of our Commissioners, George Hebert. He can start introducing and your fellow commissioners. Commissioner, go ahead.
George Hebert, representing all of Sullivan County.
Commissioner Joe Osgood.
Yeah, I was mainly the elected officials, so first, and then we can introduce the staff.
We have our county manager, Derek Ferland, and Sharon Callum, our secretary.
Sure. And then, do we have any other elected officials present today? You want to introduce yourself?
Janet Gibson, Registrar of Deeds.
John Simons, County Sheriff.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, all right, now that we've made the introductions, I would like to begin. Of course, this is a very important meeting where we consider the proposed county budget. So I'm now going to turn it over to Representative Suzanne Gottling to do the EFC presentation of the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. Go ahead, please, Representative Gottling.
Thank you, Representative Cloutier. We have it up here. We go to the next slide. First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the committee. Representative Tanner, who's on her way, I think, to New York City, Representative Aaron, Representative Merchant, and Representative Spilsbury for helping out and I think having a relatively smooth and pleasant experience in developing our recommendation. The goals of the EFC were to minimize the growth in the total budget, which is 3.6%. We were always in support of the Board of Commissioners' targeted wage increase proposal, And we hope that has brought many new employees and kept a lot of them, thanks to our increases for these folks. Finally, the EFC wanted to keep the tax increase in line with inflation. And we just, following Representative Spilsbury's advice, we took the number of 8.99% as the reasonable estimate of present inflation. And finally, we wanted to preserve the unassigned fund balance in accordance with county policy. So some of you may remember, as I certainly remember, the initial statement of the tax increase was that it might be 29.4%. And the commissioners worked with the county manager and reduced that to 11.99%, a total of about $2.4 million. They did this by variances from fiscal year 22 operating budget, which means that thanks to some influx of revenue, we came very close to our revenue budget, but we were way under in our expense budget. And this $900,000 represents that number. Then they also, the commissioners, reduced some of the wage increase, the initial wage increase proposal, and that was another $700,000. And then they used unassigned fund balance to the tune of $500,000 and $300,000 from the Sullivan County Healthcare Reserve Fund. And this came to a total of $2.4 million. However, could you go to the next one? Oh, okay, yeah, my page is upside down. When the EFC met after having looked at the commissioner's final proposal, we decided that a tax increase of 8.99%, if it could be done, was a reasonable expectation, and this meant we had to find another $423,964. Some of that comes from what we believe will be an increase in income revenue, interest income revenue. Hopefully we didn't have all those increases of 3/4 a point from the Federal Reserve that won't be reflected in our interest income. So we're hopeful on that. We also reduced the grant writer expense by $25,000 while leaving another $40,000 for grant writing. And then we voted on an additional use of unassigned fund balance of $278,964. And we were able to do that because the county manager was quite sure that we would have more variance in the budget than originally predicted when the commissioners would use $900,000. So looking at the figures from June 21st on the difference between what we budgeted for expenses and what we actually had in expenses, we had $3.4 million still there, and so it feels relatively comfortable that we will be able to cover this $278,000 extra dollars. So, some of our feeling was that if the commissioners did not want to take so much money that might otherwise go into the undesignated fund balance, that potential adjustments that they could look at would be to reduce the annual capital allocation for sheriff's vehicles and other vehicles and equipment. The vehicles that the sheriff in particular right now is getting are a good deal sturdier, and we hope will last longer than the usual 4 years. And perhaps we will be able to consider a 5-year life for each of those vehicles. But that's a recommendation to the commissioners. We also felt that there were some transfers for projects that did not have to be allocated to capital reserve. There was a suggestion that we could reduce all county grants by a small percentage, but reducing each grant by the same percentage. And then there was the suggestion that we reduce the travel and training budgets. So those are our kind of concrete suggestions for the commissioners to look at if they choose not to take so much out of the undesignated fund balance. So that leads us to a total budget of $35,800,684, a 3.6% increase, but a property tax revenue of $15,402,937, an 8.99% increase. And this was a unanimous vote from the EFC that we recommend to the rest of this delegation that you approve this amount. And I guess, are there any questions? Is that the next slide?
What is the percentage for pay raises for county employees going to be with this budget?
I believe it is not the same for everyone, so I would defer to the county manager to give it to you in explicit detail.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Because different folks that were lower, we felt we needed to keep, at one point we only had 55% of our folks in the dietary department. We had that many vacancies. And people need to eat in our nursing home. So we felt that, so there is a difference. So Derek, would you help?
Yes, happy to respond. So one of the changes this year for our non-bargaining staff, traditionally the cost of living adjustment has been pegged to the December consumer price index number. So it's the rolling 12-month CPI indexed as of December is what we traditionally have done. And in the past, since I've been here, it's been in the low 1%, so 1.4, 1.6, et cetera. This year it was 5.9. So that was a little bit of sticker shock from all involved when we built that into the budget. That was one of the reasons why my version of the budget had a 29% increase, because that was a really big CPI for COLA. So in asking the other municipal managers across the state, some municipalities use a 3-year average to smooth that out, and it takes out any potential spikes. So we plugged that into this budget, and it reduced the COLA to 3.1%. So that was one way that we got the total number down, but that's for non-bargaining staff. The targeted wage increase, as Representative Gottlieb mentioned, was really for the lower end of our wage earners. Our starting wage was $12.06 for grade 2. And so we just realized, with 55% vacancies, that the proof was pretty much in the pudding. We just couldn't fill those jobs. So we had an across-the-board wage increase that got pared down significantly. And so what we were left with was a $3 an hour increase for our grades 2 and 4. So that's our food service workers and just housekeeping? And laundry. Yeah, so housekeeping, laundry, and food service got a $3 an hour flat raise. Some of our grade 6 personnel, which includes our LNAs, our cooks, our LMNAs, the cooks got $1.50, and the LNAs got $1.50, the LMNAs got $1.50, and then all other grades, grades 9 and below, got a $1 an hour raise. So really it was, again, targeted towards the lower end of our wage scale, to try to bring those folks up and help with our recruitment and retention issues. We do have other work to do for the grades 10 and above, and so we're working with the commissioners
to try to source some of those solutions internally during this budget cycle, and we'll, look to make those official next year in the budget build. But trying to bite it all at once just proved to be too much for this budget build.
Thank you.
Is there further follow-up, Representative Sullivan?
For example, what grade level is the Sullivan County Correctional Center? What are they getting for raises?
The corrections officers are grade 7. That's a good point. I forgot to mention. So they're getting a $2.50 an hour raise for the corrections officers as part of this budget.
Yes, all right, please continue.
One more thing. Do you think that this is enough to keep our employees in this county, or do you think some of them will be leaving if we aren't competitive with other counties and other jobs? I know there's employees are very hard to come by now. It's very hard to retain people because everybody's moving and jumping. Is there enough in here to retain both the prison and the nursing home in this budget, or do you think that have you heard rumors that we may lose some of the employees?
Well, let me answer your first question. I don't know if it's enough. We're going to have to just wait and see. We did what we thought was prudent, what we thought was reasonable, and that balanced the needs of our staff and our taxpayers. We tried to get as much data as we could about what other counties are paying for similar positions, and it's hard to get market rate analysis for some of our positions, and some employers really aren't giving up that information as freely as they were a few years ago. So we're going to have to wait and see. But we just try to strike that balance of what we thought was reasonable for all parties concerned. Now, have we heard people unhappy? Absolutely. We've had feedback from staff that were very disappointed in the change to the 3-year COLA. That felt like the rug was pulled out from under them a little bit. Why did we change now? Why couldn't we have waited till next year? So we've had some detailed conversations with folks about what was going on and some of the budgetary pressures. We were trying to find a compromise solution, and I guess the old adage, if you find a compromise where nobody's happy, you've probably done a good job. And I don't think anybody's like super keen, but at least I hope they understand the rationale behind it. Doesn't mean they're still going to like it, but that's okay.
Follow-up question?
Yes, Representative.
If we lose a number of employees, will we have to pay other employees time and a half to fill those hours?
We do that
anyway. Will that
anyway.
end up costing the county more money?
We already pay overtime. So
we pay a lot of overtime though, right?
Yeah, depending on how you define a lot, sure, yeah. We do have vacancies that we'd like to fill, let's put it that way. And if we did, it would reduce the overtime but not eliminate it. And that's both in the jail and the nursing home.
Thank you, Representative Ross. Representative Sullivan, please. Thank you for your patience.
Probably is toward the county manager also. Interested in knowing what the collective bargaining process was to interact with the unions and putting these wage increases in place. If I understood correctly, if I remember correctly, there were collective bargaining agreements in place that would need to be reopened in order to make this happen. Is that accurate? And can you explain how it happened?
Yeah, the union representative for AFSCME, which is the nursing home union, they were very flexible. They didn't want to treat this as a reopening. It would have been probably overly complex, and we were simply talking about an increase in wages, even though it wasn't for every member of that bargaining unit. Traditionally, when we've had our CBA negotiations, that's always been a non-starter. It's everybody gets the same raise no matter what. But they understood this was a unique situation, and they were working with us to say, yes, whatever you agree on, we will accept it and look to address any lingering inequities in the next CBA bargaining cycle, which will be next, it'll start this winter because the contract only has 1 year left on it. So they were great to work with. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
NCEU, the Corrections Employees Union, is a little harder to communicate with their staff rep. So we've tried to reach out to let them know what was happening. Again, we're just looking to give them more money, and it's kind of a unilateral thing. So I think it's a good news. It's a win for them. I don't expect they're going to resist, but we haven't actually formally completed that communication with their staff rep. And we'll look to codify it in a sidebar agreement so we don't have to, open up the whole CBA and sign it over again, especially since it's just for this last year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Sullivan. Manager Furlan. Further questions of Representative Gottlieb? Yes, go ahead, Representative Spilsbury, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make two observations and just ask the county manager to confirm whether I have them accurately. At the lower grade end, where we have starting salaries just over $12, and we have the greatest challenge in recruiting and retention, I believe it's accurate that the $3 per hour increase represents as much as a 25% increase. So these increases are at various levels, greatest at the lower end of the scale, where they are more extreme. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah. And another observation is that the shift to a 3-year averaging defers to some extent, but also smooths and ends up in the same outcome. So for example, where inflation has just been peaking, we hope, this may therefore lag, but next year, if inflation is abating, there will be a further adjustment that will reflect the 3-year and bake this year's high point in which case the pay adjustment will be greater than the then current, right?
Also correct.
So it ends up at the same place. It's a timing, it's a smoothing, so that we don't shoot up and then have to adjust next year.
Thank you, Representative Shelby. Representative Sullivan, please.
I'm in full agreement with what Representative Spilsbury just said. However, it means we need to commit to maintaining the same process next year, because we could very readily go back to the other process and say, well, you know, we averaged for 1 year and now we're going to go back to the 1 year. So I want to remind all of us who will be here next year that we should maintain that commitment, because otherwise we really will be pulling the rug out.
Amen to that. Credibility is the same.
Okay. Further questions of Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is likely for the county manager as well. The salary is certainly an important part, but that's not the whole picture. So for a fictitious employee of your choosing, for example, say, who makes $40,000, what's the actual compensation package?
Depends on what level of health insurance they're getting.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We generally use, now I'm speaking in generality, so the likelihood of me being inaccurate is probably pretty good. But generally speaking, we use a 50% factor for the benefits for Group 2, and we use a 25% factor for Group 1. So if that was a Group 2 employee, there'd be a $60,000 fully burdened cost, and a 25 or 40 or 20, so $50,000 for Group 1. That's only factoring FICA and the retirement system. There's some other mathematical formulas that are driven by salary, but that pretty much captures the gist of it. With the variation being healthcare, and then FICA and retirement obviously does not include healthcare, so they could not get healthcare, and that would be just a couple $1,000s if they took the rebate, or it could be up to about $25,000 if they're on a family plan. So there's a pretty big spread driven by the healthcare, but.
Okay.
Okay, please.
One follow-up. So has anybody looked at, well, when I'm looking for employment, yeah, the money's important, but then there's the stuff, right? Things that are deal sweeteners that save me money. How creative are we at looking at things like that?
Well, the health insurance rebate was one that we thought, when I started, it was a $2,000, I think, flat number, regardless of which plan you were eligible for but not taking. We changed that to a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 rebate based on a single plan, 2-person or family plan. That helped. That program has paid for itself with a number of staff that have opted for that rebate. But other than a referral bonus, there's not a lot we can do in terms of trying to sweeten the pot. We try to market the benefits as being competitive, and that really works well for people who are more experienced, well-established, and have families. They appreciate the value of our benefits package. But generally speaking, any new hire who's under the age of, just so arbitrarily say 25, they don't care. Furthermore, they view the New Hampshire retirement contribution as a tax, not as a long-term benefit, because 7% of their pay comes out and goes into the retirement system. So it's a generational thing. It's something that we're going to try to really push hard and turn that around in terms of how it's viewed. But there's only so much we can do, and they're only a captive audience when they show up for orientation. Otherwise, it's a really hard thing to try to convince someone who's young that taking 7% off the top is a good thing, even when you show them the time value of money and what that would be worth when they're 60. They just don't care.
But we do offer a tuition, right?
Sure, we have tuition assistance programs. There's a lot of other small things that we do offer to try to maintain a competitive edge. It's just, frankly, I think it's all noise level stuff. It's not enough to move the needle. We're not doing $5,000 sign-on bonuses or something else like some other employers are offering.
One thing that was pretty popular was the staff dining room where they could get lunch for a couple bucks in the staff, but COVID and short staff was kind of lost that for the time being.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about, or I might be enticed by some of Lionel's apple cider. I mean, this stuff that we can give people.
Well, we had that little staff dining room there, and they could eat relatively healthy and cheap, but it's, for COVID was the first blow, and I don't think we're doing it at all now, are we?
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, and Commissioner Nelson, I know you just walked in, but I had all the commissioners introduce themselves. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Ben Nelson, Commissioner, my apologies, but it's a busy time of year.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for being here. I know you're a busy guy, so.
Well, this is everybody. I'm not claiming to be the only one.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Any further questions, Representative Gottlieb? I don't see any, so if being done,
I have a question.
Yes, go. I'm sorry, Representative Aaron.
Okay, so, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the understanding with this budget recommendation is that if the commissioners do not wish to take as much out of unassigned fund balance for $278,964, that we've recommended, the EFC has recommended that they can reduce some of the other, or make some other adjustments in these 4 other categories that we mentioned. Is that, okay. So I just wanted to
That was the intention.
clarify that. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, yes, Representative Mercer.
Thank you for that, Aaron. I want to be clear, though, that in saying this, this is not the only thing commissioners can work on. These other lines they want to, so these are recommendations that they
Right.
focus on, but it's not exclusive.
Yeah, we didn't want to have line by line 3 or 4 pages, because we felt these were the ones that had been discussed the most and that the commissioners knew about as well.
So follow up?
Yes, please continue.
So basically what we're doing as the delegation is saying how much of an expense budget we are allowing and not micromanaging how
Right.
the commissioners then meet that number. Is that correct?
That, yes,
Thank you.
yep, yes, we,
All right. Any further questions or comments about the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget? I do not see any, so I will now entertain a motion to approve this budget. And I think you have all, yes, Representative Oxenden, please.
I'd like to move that we approve the budget as submitted by the
Okay.
AFC.
Okay, and so you basically move to adopt the fiscal year 2023 budgeted appropriations and revenue. I don't know if you have a sheet in front of you.
I do, it's just got buried.
So-
I move to adopt the fiscal year 2023 budgeted appropriations and revenues recommended by the Executive Finance Committee as amended today in the amount of $35,800,684, with $15,402,937 to be raised by taxes.
Okay, thank you, Representative Oxenden. Do I have a second on that motion? Second by Representative Stapleton. Thank you, Representative Stapleton. Okay, are we ready for the vote? Is there any further questions or comments on this motion before we take a vote? I assume is a voice vote or a roll call? What do you want? Roll call, okay. All right, okay, and I don't know, there's none of us, so you don't have to, but, okay, you suggest a roll call, okay. Okay, will the clerk, Representative O'Hearn, please call the roll?
Representative Aaron.
Yes.
Representative Callum.
Yes.
Representative Gottling.
Yes.
Representative Merchant.
Yes.
Bush votes yes. Representative Oxenham.
Yes.
Representative Rollins.
No.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury.
Yes.
Representative Stapleton.
Yes.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
And the Chair.
Yes.
Yeses, 1 no.
Okay, and the motion carries, the budget is adopted for fiscal year 2023. Okay, now we will move on to the next item on the agenda, item 5B, authorize RSA 24:15 exceeding appropriations. So I will entertain a motion in regard to that topic, please. Does someone wish to offer a motion?
Okay, fine.
Okay, I mean, to have a sheet, I don't know.
I do.
Okay, and I don't know, okay, go ahead, Representative Smith.
Pursuant to New Hampshire RSA's 2414 and 2415, in the event that an amount appropriated by the specific purpose, for a specific purpose, will not be used in whole or in part for such purpose, I move to authorize the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners to use such amount to augment other appropriations, if necessary, provided the total payments for all purposes do not exceed the total sum of fiscal year 23 appropriations approved by this county convention, and provided that each sum shall not exceed $15,000 without approval from the Executive Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you, Representative Smith. Do I have a second on the motion? Second by Representative Stapleton. Okay, motion and second. Further questions or comments about this proposed motion? Do we have, okay, so no further questions or comments. Are we ready for the vote? Do we want a roll call?
I don't think so.
Okay, you would prefer a voice vote? Any objections to a voice vote? Then we'll try a voice vote. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as made by Representative Smith and seconded by Representative Stapleton signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion is carried. Thank you. Next item, item 5C, authorize acceptance and expenditure of unanticipated funds. I have some suggested language under 5C, so I don't know if anyone would like to make a motion. Motion by Representative Stapleton.
Motion to authorize acceptance and expenditure of unanticipated funds to wit, pursuant New Hampshire RSA 24:14. I move to authorize the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners to apply for, receive, and expend federal and/or state grants and/or other unanticipated funds that become available during the course of fiscal year 2023, and also to accept and expend funds from any other governmental unit or private source to be used for purposes for which Sullivan County may legally appropriate money, and the expenditure of such funds shall be exempt from restrictions on over expenditures of appropriations.
Okay, thank you, Representative Stapleton. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Representative Aaron. Okay, questions or discussion about this proposed motion? Yes, Representative Merchant.
I'd like to propose to the delegation that we add a line to this motion, and basically it's a one simple sentence. It says the exemption shall not apply to received or to be received American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds, and does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in the aggregate during fiscal year 23.
Okay,
I'd like to amend it.
Representative
That as an amendment.
So you're going to amend the motion?
Amend the motion.
That's the amendment. Okay, Representative Merchant offers an amendment. Do I have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Okay, second by Representative Spilsbury. But thank you anyway, Representative Gottlieb.
That's okay.
Okay, debate on this motion. Any questions or comments about this amendment to item 5C? Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
Can we have another read on that, just so I'm clear on the details?
Can you please read that again, Representative Merchant?
Perhaps a little more slowly.
A little more slowly, I will stand and read it for you.
Okay, thank you.
The line basically says at the end, the exemption shall not apply to received or to be received American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. It does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in the aggregate during fiscal year 23.
Okay. Questions or comments about this proposed amendment? And I guess should direct the questions to Representative Merchant. Yes, Representative Oxenham, please.
Could the representative explain why you want the exemption not to apply to the designated listed?
Yes, because there was some confusion last year. I went back and looked at the minutes, and in the minutes, it captured, which I'll read to you folks as well. And I want to be clear with the delegation what we talked about last year, that we don't inadvertently do the same things this year. So basically last year, it says here, when we talk about ARPA funds in this exemption, for discussion, Representative Merchant asked if this motion includes or excludes the ARPA money coming into this year or the $4.1 million next year. County Commissioner Furlan confirmed they can receive these funds, but spending them requires a supplemental appropriation. He confirmed the first half of ARPA funds have arrived, and the second half is yet to arrive. He also noted that ARPA money is not a grant. This motion does not apply to grants. So when I heard later on was that the auditor said ARPA was a grant, and therefore the exemption did apply to ARPA funds. So therefore, it was not at the preview of the Executive Finance Committee or the delegation. My hat goes off to Commissioner Hebert, because even though technically it was not required to go back to EFC, they have. So I just want to be sure in this year that we're very clear as a delegation about ARPA money, that any use of ARPA money are things that exceed, because we also have something coming in from Senator Shaheen around $2 million. That those funds are in fact flowing into where we thought they would flow, which is basically the nursing home project. So I just wanted to be clear with the delegation where we stand on this issue.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Representative Oxenham. Thank you, Representative Merchant. Further questions or comments about this proposed amendment? Yes, Representative Aaron, please.
So is your intention then as well to include any money that we would receive from the recently established fund of ARPA funds for purposes of the nursing home project?
Basically any money that comes into the county that is.
Well, a fund was just established.
You mean the potential 20?
The potential $25 million,
yeah, right. Yeah.
which would, I mean, that's ARPA funds. And that that the county manager and his staff would be making an application towards, which essentially is a grant. So is this, you are saying then that money is exempted from this resolution?
Correct.
All right. Further question? Yes, Representative Spilsbury, please.
So, am I correct in understanding that all the resolution really requires is that the delegation's consent be obtained for any proposal?
Okay. All right. Further questions or comments about this proposed amendment offered by Representative Merchant?
In my understanding too, as far as, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Question. A meeting of the delegation can be called by the chair of the delegation at any time. There's no requirement for it to be meeting at certain times. So if something does come up and the delegation has to act on it, by the call of the chair, delegation can in fact reconvene in a relatively short period of notice in order to address the issue.
Yeah, just under the, it has to be proper notice under the right to know what we can do. Yes, Representative Sullivan, you had, okay.
Derek.
I'm sorry, Derek, go ahead, please, Manager Furlan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a couple clarifying questions. If the intent of this motion is to cover the second tranche of ARPA funding, or if it's for the gopher funding relative to the nursing home application.
It's to cover anything that hasn't been encumbered or spent on the first tranche as well as the second one? Correct.
Okay, well, this motion is for FY '23, so we received the first tranche in FY '21 and the second tranche in FY '22, so unless it's retroactive, I'm not sure that it would apply to funds that we've already received. And I think the guidance that we've received, both from the National Association of Counties, and I think it was mirrored by our auditors, is that those funds, whether they're considered a grant or just an accrued, not an accrual on the revenue side, is that it's an executive branch. So I'm just concerned that we might need a legal review to determine who's got the authority before taking this action. I think that would be a prudent step. But again, I think the more basic question is, if this is an FY '23 motion, does it apply retroactively or not?
I think the way it's worded, it would apply because it says money received or money to be received.
In FY '23.
Correct. So actually, if it's all done,
But that's why I think we need probably,
so are you saying it should include money received in FY '22 then, to clarify that?
I don't think it should, but I'd like to probably consult with a legal opinion before we, otherwise it's just everybody opining about. I think I understand what you're trying to do, I'm just not sure that this motion, and trying to tack on an extra sentence to this motion would do it.
Okay.
The other question I had, Mr. Chair, was just, if the $100,000 limit, I'd like a bit more clarity on that, because I'm afraid that could be, there are some economic development grants that are routinely above 100,000. So if those are meant to be included in this, and if the grants are still exempt, so one example that happened this year was we got 140,000 from Eversource through the Sullivan House project. So would that have applied to this restriction? Because that would have been, that really ties our hands, I guess, and would slow us down from the course of that.
How does it slow it down? I understand. Because if we can reconvene a delegation meeting or even go through the EFC, and that's can be done in a relatively short period of time, except for public noticing of 2 weeks, how does that slow things down?
Because having to convene a meeting is an extra
2 weeks
step.
is really that critical?
Well, I mean, it all depends. I'm only using one example. I don't know what the next example will be, but we have to make decisions that are oftentimes in much shorter cycles than a 2-week meeting cycle.
But I believe in saying in the RSA 2414, if the county has an emergency, that can be easily handled by even the EFC, part of the statute. Just saying.
Okay. All right, Representative Spilsbury, followed by Representative Aaron.
So I read the statute similarly, and we wouldn't be asked.
Sorry. Okay, all right.
We wouldn't be asked to vote on this resolution if the commissioners did not require an exemption. So the fact that they need an exemption and they need this resolution shows that without the resolution, they would not be able to proceed without bringing it back to the delegation. So I think it's clearly the intent of the mover, and as the seconder I concur, that we have a massive project ahead of us. We have been going with hat in hand to the state and the U.S. Congress for money. And as beggars, I think we're morally obligated to commit as much funds as we have available. If the commissioners feel that some of the ARPA funds could better be used in another way, all they would have to do under this resolution as amended is to bring that proposal back and let us weigh the pros and cons. So I personally feel that we left $7 million uncommitted in ARPA funds when we at last summer, and that's where I think they need to go unless someone makes a very clear case to me to move it, some of it, in a different direction. Now, I do think perhaps that our county manager has just identified a flaw in the amendment. because the resolution in line 4 specifically refers to those funds that become available during the course of FY23. And we can overcome that problem with addition of just a couple of words in the one-sentence amendment that Representative Merchant has offered by saying the exemption shall not apply to funds received in FY21, 22, or 23, or to be received. And if we're in the mood to agree with the purpose of the amendment, I would suggest we add those words and make sure it's clear.
Thank you, Representative Marin, followed by Representative Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My only reservation with this, well, is one of my reservations with this is the ease of getting the EFC or the EFC and the delegation together. I mean, it just in the past few months, it's been very difficult to get everybody's schedule together. So I appreciate what our county manager has said in terms of timing and being able to make decisions. And so I just wonder how easy it would be to get everybody together to make any kind of recommendation or vote on something that needs to be done very quickly.
Well, if I may add, for the EFC, we only need 3 people for a quorum, and for the delegation, we need 7. So we don't need the entire group of either group to have an official meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification, Representative Gottlieb. Representative Smith, thank you for your patience.
No problem, thanks. So I'm trying to work through the mechanics of this. So corrections, or the Sheriff's Department, has an opportunity to apply for a $150,000 grant. They probably have to submit a plan with the grant proposal, so we have to convene the delegation to give them permission to seek the grant. What would the timing be? Whoever can answer that.
If I may.
Oh, Representative Merchant, yeah, go ahead, please.
The exemption is the restrictions over the over expenditures. So applying for the grant or receiving the grant is not included. It's only when the money is to be expended. So the process of applying for it, the process of receiving it is not encumbered. It's only the expenditure of those funds.
Okay, is that?
Follow up.
Okay, yeah, okay, please continue, Representative.
Okay, but if the grant requires a commitment to follow through, I mean, doesn't that seem awkward? So they're applying for a specific $150,000 grant, they have to submit a plan, they have to do some work, and then at the end of all their work, we tell them yes or no. That's what without debating whether that's good or not, that's what the intent of the amendment is?
Well, in that case, if I understand it correctly, if you're looking for a designated grant that has very specific, that's going to encumber the funds of the grant, it'd probably be wise to go back to the delegation of the EFC to be sure that when the monies come in, that they are being supported by the appropriate body. Otherwise, you're right, you would have a situation where the funds would come in, the funds have a certain restriction attached to them, and the delegation doesn't agree with that restriction, it would become an awkward situation. So in that case, I would say you go back to the delegation, ask for their approval. It's before you do it. Now, how often that happens, I really don't know.
Okay.
What's, if I may ask, Mr.
Yes, Representative Gottlieb, if you want to.
What's the largest non-ARPA or Gopher Fund grant we've ever received?
Ever received? I can't answer that.
Well, that you know of, in your experience here.
$500,000 CDBG grants, which are pretty common. We also receive grants on behalf of other agencies. I mean, I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve, but I'm just concerned that it complicates our ability to get our job done.
Okay, Commissioner Hebert, could you?
I'm a little concerned over this topic anyway. I mean, it's almost a mistrust of the commissioners and the county manager to operate efficiently. I don't know what you guys are worried about, or Representative Merchant, but you're creating issues here. We've always been able to handle these whatever money came in, and we've been very forthright with the EFC and the delegation. We've never tried to hide anything or do anything that was inappropriate. So are you looking to take more control away from the commissioners, or I don't know what your goal is here? It's disturbing to me.
If I may respond to that, I think,
Representative Gottlieb.
yeah, I think that some of it is the fact that in the past, we were assured that the ARPA money would go towards the nursing home to reduce the amount that we have to bond. And then we know that some went for other things, and there has been some discussion. Yes, am I wrong?
With your approval, it went for other things.
You
made it sound like it just went, snuck out for other things.
That's okay, I'm not saying without, you presented a good argument on the salaries and things like that.
You folks decided to
And we
send it
voted
other
for
places.
it, exactly.
And we had a handshake deal to that effect, and now apparently Representative Merchant is saying he doesn't trust
I
it.
don't want to get any really running debates. I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
Well, I just wanted to say that I think that I'm leery of, and it may not happen, but I do think that I personally don't want to see any more erosion of what we have in county funds to support the nursing home funding, and that's just my position.
Then limit it to ARPA funds.
You have wished to, okay, Commissioner Nelson.
Well, I mean, we had a handshake deal on the ARPA funds. Now apparently there are some that are don't trust us, so they want to enshrine it. If you want to do that, enshrine it to ARPA funds. Don't throw a blanket over everything.
Okay, all right, thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Osgood.
My feel on this amendment is that it was put together quickly, and it had to be. It comes to us as a surprise. And there's two things an amendment would have to be looked at if it was to be applied. One is the intent, and you've pretty much spelled out your intent. But the other thing is the interpretation. And the interpretation leaves a whole lot to be desired because it brings in another party if it was to be argued. And I think it's risky to put something like this together without a real good example of interpretation of it. We've already had questions that literally bring up the fact of interpretation. Your intent might be this, and that's your intent, but what's the intent of everybody else that's voting for this thing? Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Osgood. Okay, further, Representative Sullivan, please.
I do believe this goes a little bit further than was intended. I believe that the issue, the ARPA funds are huge. It's a lot of money. It's, it's going to be $30 million by the time we're done, or more. So that's an area of concern where I think the delegation wants to have some involvement. I can understand that this $100,000 cap is creating a problem that hasn't existed in the past, and it hasn't been a problem in the past so far as I know. So I think the amendment needs some work. I think it serves a purpose with regard to the ARPA funds, and I think it might benefit from the eyes of an attorney. And perhaps what we should do is either vote this entire issue down so we can take it up later, or withdraw the motion entirely so we can take it up at our next meeting, which will happen in approximately a month. And that way we can get it right. We can get the intent where it belongs, and we won't have unintended consequences that I think would be problematic for the county. So that's my suggestion, and see where it goes.
So, Representative, just to be clear, you're suggesting maybe Representative Merchant ought to withdraw his amendment at least? And
I'm suggesting the amendment be withdrawn and the motion on the article itself, or the issue itself, so that we can take it up a month from now. And I don't think that's going to hamper the commissioners in the meantime.
Okay. All right. Yes, Representative Spilsbury.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Representative Sullivan's comments are entirely constructive. I believe we have to meet very soon to approve minutes of today's meeting, so we have an occasion to be together. I don't think that would upset anything if we follow that suggestion. But whether I do believe the language can be cleared up today, but whether we do it today or when we meet next, I just want to frame what we should be thinking about, what needs to be corrected. This sentence is, in my opinion, not very ambiguous. It is not really difficult to interpret. It's actually very simple. It's a compound sentence that has two parts. The part before the "and" simply says, if you add the words I suggested before, the exemption shall not apply to funds received in FY 21, 22, or 23, or to be received under the American Rescue Plan Act. That's simple. And that's one proposition. And then it further adds, and does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in the aggregate during FY 23 only. I think that's straightforward. I think the rub there is the $100,000 and the question of past practice. So there's two ways that you could go about resolving the question. One is to drop the second half of the sentence. Another is to increase the $100,000 figure to something that's more generally agreeable. I think that can be resolved today, but if there's reluctance, it makes perfect sense to defer to the next meeting.
Okay. Question, I don't know. Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
I'm having difficulty anticipating all the nebulous possibilities here that we might encumber by putting a choker on the ARPA funds, by withdrawing the exemption. And, you know, we're talking about a $57 million project. Who knows? Maybe that'll go to 60 with what we have as far as inflation and labor and cost of materials. And then didn't we back out some furniture and peripherals? I'm having trouble figuring if we're putting a choker on this and we're going to inhibit ourselves with this amendment. I'm inclined to agree with the commissioners that this is a little bit questionable, if not doubtful, and I don't see the need for us putting that choker on ARPA funds, which we need in their entirety for the Sullivan County Health Care Project.
That's, I think that, if I may,
Thank you,
that's the point.
That's the point.
So I don't know, as I said, I don't want to represent Merchant. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, maybe an amendment?
If I could address Representative Stapleton's concern, I hear what you're saying, Representative Stapleton, but if I'll go back and look at F5B, we put a cap of $15,000 per line that can't be moved by the commissioners without consent of the EFC. 15,000. So therefore, when I talk about the sum of money, the 100,000, if you go to 500,000, whatever may be agreed to, that's far in excess of $15,000. We're not trying to micromanage what the commissioners do. But when you get to the point of having funds of that magnitude, I think it's just wise that we come back and talk about it collectively and have a discussion on it, both the pros and the cons, and deliberate on it. So I'm okay. I think we can resolve it today. I think what Representative Stillsbury put forward, I think is logical. I'm not married to $100,000, so it goes to $250,000, $500,000. You know, I'm okay with that. It's just that the intent of it is saying that at some point, if the sum is large enough, it should come back to this delegation of this body and deliberate it and talk about it. Otherwise, we're giving a lot of flexibility, which is fine, beyond the budget, because when $4 million comes in, it's not in the budget, and they can be spent without the delegation's approval. That's a lot of money.
Okay. Yes, Representative all right, Commissioner Nelson.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear you on the ARPA funds. I would ask you to limit to the ARPA funds. We routinely get, Claremont will say, geez, we're looking to do a sewer project. Can you help us with a $500,000 CBDG grant? We did it for Pleasant View Estates. We did it for the mill project. We did it for the Salt Hill. So when the municipality comes to us and says, geez, can you help us out and apply for a $500,000 grant? Well, just a minute, we've got to go ask these guys for permission. I mean, my request would be to limit it to the ARPA funds.
All right, thank you.
Both don't fix it.
So, yes, Manager Furlong.
Follow Representative Gutling, the HUD grant, the lead paint abatement, that was 1.7 million. So that's far greater than 500,000.
Thank you.
I
knew you could find a
Okay.
bigger figure.
All right, Representative Kellen, you have a question or comment, please, followed by Representative Smith.
I have a comment. If the amendment is brought to a vote, I will be voting no.
All right, okay, thank you very much, Representative Kellen. Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to divide the question.
Okay, so how do you wish to divide the question, Representative Smith, so make it everybody clear here?
Part A would be everything up to in the last sentence, ARPA funds. And that then the separate topic for the subsequent vote would be the funds that exceed $100,000.
All right, so in other words, you would want to divide the question, so basically in this amendment as proposed by Representative Merchant, the first part would end with the last, I'm using the last few words, restrictions on over expenditures of appropriations, period. That's one section. And then the second section would be the exemption shall not apply to or received or to be received American Rescue Plan ARPA funds and does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in aggregate during fiscal year 23. Is that?
No, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
He wants ARPA funds.
Oh, the break is here. Okay, I'm sorry, Representative Sullivan. I wasn't clear. All right, okay. Thank you, Representative Sullivan, for your help. So you want it to, okay. So break and do not break in one section up until ARPA funds, and then the second section, and does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in the aggregate during fiscal year 23. Is that correct?
Correct, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, okay.
It's all dealing just with the last sentence.
Okay.
The first part of the last sentence, the second part of the last
Okay,
sentence.
all right. Thank you, Representative Sullivan. Representative Aaron, please.
So, Representative Smith, I'd be interested to know, for the ARPA funds, does that apply to ARPA funds that have already been received or to be received? That's a gray area for me in dividing the question, is what ARPA funds are we talking about?
It says explicitly received, so I think it would be a lift to make it mean anything else.
Excuse me, do you?
If I may.
Yeah, okay.
Are you asking which of the group? Did it apply to funds received in fiscal 22 and to receive in fiscal 23? That'd be clear.
Well, then, instead of dividing the question, we're putting in another amendment. That's the difference. Just.
And I'll leave it to Representative Spilsbury, who's an attorney.
Okay, I'm sorry, Representative O'Hearn makes a good point. Is there a second on Representative Smith's motion to divide the question?
Second.
A second by Representative Sullivan. Thank you, Representative Sullivan. Sorry about that. Please continue where we will.
I'll defer to Representative Spilsbury, who's got a little background.
I agree with Representative Merchant's interpretation that, and I believe Representative Smith's interpretation, that received captures all the ARPA money that's been received, and it's not really ambiguous. However, I did suggest a couple of additional words to make it totally bulletproof. If anyone's uncomfortable about the interpretation, we can go there. I don't think we need to.
You have a discussion that can be referred to.
Exactly. Legislative intent.
And this is why we have minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One thing, going back to Brian's proposal, I really think with all the questions we have and everything, I think we're better off to pick this up at a later date when everybody has more time to put more thought into it, more consideration into it, and we can all maybe get on the same page. So I think we should probably hold off today, come back to the next meeting, and pick this up. We got plenty of time to do that.
Okay, your point is well taken, Representative Robb, but there is a motion on the floor, and so I think we do have to vote on the motion, Representative Smith's motion to divide the question. So are we ready for the vote?
Yes.
So you want this to be a roll call? Yes, Representative. Oh, yes, Representative Oxenham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't feel ready to vote because I don't have the motion in front of me since it was made verbally.
Why don't you withdraw? All right, okay.
Perhaps, once again, simply reading the section that we are voting on that has been divided.
Okay, well, there is a motion on the
The
floor,
addition
and you
of
still
the
would want us to vote on that,
clarifying
Representative
years.
Smith? You and your seconder? Okay.
As a seconder, I'd be happy to read
Oh,
it again
yeah,
for
Representative Sullivan,
Representative
sorry.
Oxenham.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Loudly.
I will, yes, if my voice holds up.
I can read the motion.
Okay, here we go. Representative Smith's motion to divide, first part of the divided would be Part A, the exemptions shall not apply to received or to be received American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds, period. Second part, B, does not apply to other funds that exceed $100,000 individually or in aggregate during FY '23, which means once divided, we will have two votes. One vote on Part A and a second vote on Part B. They could both be defeated, they could both be approved, or something in between.
All right, thank you for that
Thank you very
clarification,
much.
Representative Smith. So are we, before we take a vote on this, are we clear what we're voting on? Yes, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since you put it that way, I do want to make explicit too. So Part A includes all the boilerplate language at the beginning of the stock resolution that we have.
Okay, yeah, we have a stock, so this is because Representative Merchant made an amendment to
Yep.
5C, so just be clear. So we've got to get back, first of all, we've got to take a vote on dividing the question.
Yes.
And if that passes, then we vote on each separate section of the amendment, then we go back to the main motion. All right, okay, so is everybody clear? I'm having a hard, so just bear with me, but I think, are we all clear? I assume we want a roll call on this, correct? Okay, I think, all right, okay, Representative Kern, would you please call the roll?
Representative Aaron.
This is, again, the motion to divide the question.
Yeah, that's the short of the question. Divide the question.
Yes.
Representative Callen.
Representative Callen votes yes.
Representative Gottlieb.
Yes.
Representative Merchant.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Oxenham.
Yes.
Representative Rollins.
Yes.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury.
Yes.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
I didn't vote yet.
Okay, well, sorry.
Representative, sorry about that. Representative Stapleton.
No.
Yes is 1 no.
Okay, the motion carries, the motion is divided. So now what we're going to do is take a vote on the first section of the motion. Is everybody clear on that, or do you want me to read that back, or does everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay, so if everybody's clear, but I'm more than happy to read it. I just want to be sure that we know what we'll vote on the first section, which is the largest part, and then the second is just basically less than a sentence, okay? Is everybody clear? Okay, I assume we want a roll call on this? Okay, go ahead, please, on the first section. Representative O'Hearn.
Representative Aaron.
No.
Representative Callum.
Yes.
Representative Gottlieb.
Yes.
Representative Merchant.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Oxenham.
Yes.
Representative Rollins.
No.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury.
Yes.
Representative Stapleton.
No.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Nine yeses, 3 noes.
3 no. So the first part of this motion as divided passes. Now we will go to the second part of this divided motion. Anybody want anything repeated? Everybody clear what we're voting? Yes, Representative Oxenham.
I would appreciate hearing the second part again.
Okay, and I just bear with me, and if anybody, if I makes a mistake, let me know. The second part is just less than a sentence and does not apply to other funds that exceed 100,000 individually or in the aggregate during fiscal year 23. I believe that's the intent of the second part. Is everybody in agreement?
The exemption does not apply?
To other funds. And I think that means outside of the ARPA funds, is that correct? All right, so in other words, exceed 100,000 or individual or sort of some grant, which we talked about earlier, would not apply, as I understand it. Is that correct? I mean,
Isn't that already our policy? Why are you voting?
Okay, yeah, okay. But I just want to be clear what the intent of the motion is. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hubert. Okay, are there any other further questions or comments? I assume we all want a roll call vote, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Representative Hearn, could you please call the roll?
Representative Aaron.
No.
Representative Callum.
No.
Representative Gottlieb.
Yes.
Representative Merchant.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Oxenham.
Yes.
Representative Rollins.
No.
Representative Smith.
No.
Representative Spilsbury.
Yes.
Representative Stapleton.
No.
The Vice Chair.
No.
Chair.
I don't know. Yes.
It's a tie, so it fails.
It's a tie. Okay, so the motion fails. So it sounds like that part has failed, so we would only be voting on the amendment from Representative Merchant up until ARPA funds, period. All right, so the motion, as I said, so that's the only part of the amendment we will vote on now because the second part failed. Do we understand the vote? Because we basically, this is an amendment to 5C, so in order for a vote, we need to do it as an amendment. So I believe Representative, you offered it. Are you still willing to have it?
We've already approved the amendment.
Okay, we've approved it. Okay, thank you, Representative Sullivan.
Approve it as amended.
As amended, so 5C. All right, so we're all set with 5C, that,
Yes.
as an amendment, okay? So it has been approved.
Can you read the motion as amended?
5C needs to be approved as amended. We need one more vote.
Okay, all right, thank you, Representative Sullivan. Do we have a motion to approve 5C as amended?
Yes.
Representative Smith made the motion. Do I have a second on that motion? Representative Gottlieb, yes. So this is 5C as amended, but does not include the last part. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this amended motion before we vote? And everybody clear what we're voting on? Okay, yes, Representative Oxenham, please.
You want to read it?
Just to be clear, so this is, the exemption shall not apply to ARPA funds that have been received or are to be received in fiscal year 2023?
No, on your sheet. You need.
I don't have a sheet.
Oh, okay.
This is the difficulty.
Just take smart.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Bill.
apologize.
No, that's all right.
So basically what we're doing is taking from here
Okay.
off, the rest of it stays.
So, and the received and/or to be received, that's in here?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
The exemption does apply to received or to be
Just
received ARPA funds.
wanted to make sure that we were catching
Okay,
that.
do you understand the motion now, Representative Oxenham?
I do.
Okay,
Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Yes, Representative Aaron, please.
So then are we saying that the Board of Commissioners will not, with this language, will not be able to receive and expend ARPA funds? Because it's exempted from that.
How does it connect to?
Because, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yes, Representative Merchant.
If you look at, would you go back to the piece of papers in our packet? If you look at RSA 2414, there's a limit to it, the cap to what has to be done. In order to allow the commissioners the flexibility outside of the RSA 2414, we need to have a resolution at the county convention to give them that exemption from that RSA. So basically, this point in time this is an exemption to it, but that exemption we're giving to them does not apply to ARPA funds. Okay?
Does not apply to ARPA.
So but Commissioner?
Yes, I would just add the observation that when we met more or less last June or July, we did vote and explicitly authorize certain expenditures.
Yes.
Those are already behind us, and simply providing to do the same thing with the funds that remain, approximately $7 million.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Representative Spilsbury and Representative Merchant. Further questions or comments about this motion as amended? Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
Yes,
So, in reference to Representative Spilsbury, what you just spoke, because we've already approved in FY '22, then it's fitting that we're only talking about FY '23 at this point, in this 5C motion.
Yes, you wish to respond, Representative Spilsbury.
That does require clarification. We're not talking about the funds that were already approved last year, about 1.2 million, if my memory is correct. We're talking about all of the unallocated funds that remain, regardless of whether they were received in FY '21 or FY '22 or FY '23 cumulatively, and that's why we're just using the word received.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you for that clarification, Representative.
If I can.
Yes, Representative Arles, you had some questions.
Would it be possible to hear from one of the commissioners on what their feelings is on this particular issue, on this
I'd
amendment?
like to say something, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, Commissioner Heber.
You know, by doing this, you're creating a level of mistrust between the delegation and the commission. If you don't feel we're capable of being honest and telling you that nothing goes through this commission without consent of the delegation or the EFC when it comes to financial stability. And I feel I'm a little bit set back by the concerns that you're having right now over whether we can actually function in this capability as commissioners in this county. If that's the way you feel, then that's fine, at least we know that. But it is going to create a level of mistrust between our two elected factions. And I'm sorry to see it get to that point. So you guys have that authority, we can't stop you. So you do what you feel you need to do.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Further questions, Representative O'Hearn, please.
I'm a little taken back as far as where we are at right now, because I was surprised about the motions and everything. So I may be in a minority to make this, because I'm still slightly confused as to where we're at. So I'm gonna make a motion to table this to our next meeting in hopes that somehow I can better understand where we're at. Of course, I would need a second on that.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Representative O'Hearn, a second by Representative Rollins to table this proposed amendment to this motion 5C. We clear what we're voting on?
Yes.
All right, okay, I assume we want a roll call on this, right? Yes, Representative Spilsbury.
There's no discussion on it.
All right, your question, all right, I believe tabling, there's no discussion normally.
Just to clarify.
Okay, all right, yeah, clarificate, you can ask that.
So we are being asked to table the motion as amended.
Right. Now, Representative O'Hearn, do I have a question? Is your intent maybe we bring this back at our next delegation meeting?
Correct.
Okay, which we will talk about in a minute, setting a date for the next meeting, because we've got to approve the minutes anyway of what we've, and of this meeting. So are we you're saying that we table it to the next meeting, that's your intent. I just want to be clear here, what we're doing if we do decide to table this. Are we ready for the vote on this tabling motion? And I assume we want a roll call vote? Yes. Okay, yes, go ahead, please.
Representative Aaron.
Yes.
Representative Callum.
Yes.
Representative Gottlieb.
Yes.
Representative Merchant.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Oxenham.
Yes.
Representative Rollins.
Yes.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury.
Yes.
Representative Stapleton.
Yes.
The Vice Chair.
Yes.
And the Chair.
Did you call Representative Merchant? I didn't.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I just, yes.
12 yeses and unanimous.
It is unanimous. So the motion is tabled to our next delegation meeting. So, okay, thank you. So we will take that up at our next meeting, which we're going to get into now in item 6.
With clarification.
Yes, yes, Commissioner
So
Nelson.
does this mean if the 25 million comes in next week, we can accept it?
Okay, well, we're going to set the date. I mean, we need to.
25C is,
Right, okay.
5C is accept.
Okay, and I don't know, are you expecting 25?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
But who knows, but the way this reads, if money comes in tomorrow, we
Well,
can't
you've got
accept it.
2 days before the end of June.
Okay, all right. And you may be correct, but I believe Gopher is going to take a while to.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm
but-
just from the county manager.
But 5C is accept or expend,
Okay,
so we
all right.
cannot accept money until you guys get together.
All right, okay.
Well, yeah, for the next 2 days you
So,
can.
Well,
So-
yes.
Yeah.
all right, okay, let's get back to item 6. And I was gonna, okay, so we do need to come back and approve the convention minutes, and we need to do it within 30 days, which is basically July 27th. So when's a good date? And because of this issue that, I mean, I was also gonna maybe talk about the healthcare working group, item 7, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So I think I'm willing to come back. I think next week maybe it's a vacation for a lot of people. And if we came in and just did the minutes, we could probably take, I don't know, of course with this issue, maybe we took it up again, it may take a while. So Representative Sullivan, please.
I think our intent is to give us a little time so we can get this thing straightened out
Okay.
properly. So if we rush the next meeting, we'll still be sitting where we are now, and that's not a good thing.
Okay.
Furthermore, I believe the process for the nursing home right now is to have the working group get back together, have a meeting, hopefully in one meeting can figure out our recommendation for bonding to the EFC. The EFC would then have a meeting and take up that recommendation and have something to bring to the full delegation. That's going to take more than a couple days.
Okay, all right.
So I think, understanding what Commissioner Nelson said about receiving money, I think that's a bird worth killing. The nursing home, I shouldn't say it that way. But it's something if we can get it out of the way, when do the minutes have to be done, 30 days?
Within 30 days by around July 27th to 28th.
Okay, if we can give us most of that time, I think it would be good, because if we can figure out how to do it in one meeting with the working group, one meeting with the EFC, we can be ready to roll with with a motion on the nursing home, I'll just put it that way, by the end, within a month, I hope. Maybe not, but I hope.
Well, and I wasn't suggesting to expedite the nursing home thing, but the way it stands now, if somebody offers us $100 grand for energy efficiency in 3 days, we can't take it.
Okay. Hopefully they'll defer for 30.
Okay, so, as far as the date, so you would recommend that we wait till the end of the July, is that what you're saying?
Close to that, yes.
Okay.
Last week in July.
So the only thing I am concerned about with the county manager and the commissioners, is this gonna, I can see a week or two, but I am a little concerned, you think you'd be willing to wait a month?
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds, because in getting the delegation together in the summer, it's gonna be summer, we have done it
Propose a date.
Okay, how about?
July
I
26th.
thought it was gonna be easy to get everybody together.
Okay, do we wanna do this in the evening?
Propose a date.
All right, I would propose Monday, July 25th, excuse me, I'm take that back, I apologize, Wednesday, July 27th, go right to the end.
Really wanna go to the end?
Okay.
Oh, the 26th.
26th, with that, okay, in the evening, that's a Tuesday? Yeah. Right, okay, all right, how about Tuesday, July 26th? We want to meet in the evening, I assume? And maybe 6:30 in Newport at either the Lou Thompson room or the probate courtroom. If we do anything in the nursing home, I think we ought to meet in the evening, because if we're gonna, you know, this is the grand scheme of things, have a public hearing, let the public have a chance. Be it, Newport is probably about as centrally located in Sullivan County as we can get.
Just get a time and a date.
Time and date, okay, so Tuesday, July 26th at 6:30 PM. Can everybody make it who is here? I know Representative Tanner is not. Anybody okay, so we can all make it? Because obviously, we need a quorum of at least 7, and I know we're all busy, so this is what I will propose unless there's an objection.
Is there anyone who can't make it?
Anyone who can't make it, and I can't speak for Representative Tanner, but so I assume at least 12 out of the 13 of us can make it as of now.
Representative Gottlieb's left.
Yes, okay, well, when she gets back.
She's left.
She left, okay, then, without objection, that's the date I'm going to set. Tuesday, July 26th at 6:30 PM, preferably in Newport, at either the Lou Thompson room, so as to get coverage from NC, or if necessary, we go to the probate courtroom. All right, okay, very good, everybody, thank you. Item 6. Item number 7, I don't know, Representative Sullivan, if you want to talk some more about the Sullivan County Healthcare Working Group.
I will a bit, and I may defer to the county manager a bit too, because he and I spoke yesterday morning, and he was going to have a conversation yesterday afternoon with the deputy. Sorry. He was going to have a conversation with the deputy commissioner yesterday afternoon. Derek, did that take place?
It did.
Okay. So essentially where we stand now is we have established by the Joint Fiscal Committee and the Executive Council, both of them, right, a $50 million nursing home fund from which it's broadly assumed that Sullivan County will be getting a 20,000 plus grant from that. I mean, it's supposed to be 40% of the project, which I think at present would put it in the range of 23 million. Derek and I talked yesterday about the possibility of having some inflationary adjustments made, because it's been a while since we set the $57 million figure, so we might be able to push it up a little bit and see if it, did you find out if that would be considered if we do it?
Probably, once we get the details of the application.
We've got to get an application in, so that's why it's still a little bit mushy. But basically, we've got a high degree of confidence that we've got money coming from Gopher. The exact amount we'll have to figure out in the next little while, and basically the working group, as I said before, needs to meet to talk about how much we're going to bond, and EFC needs to meet and talk about the same thing. Having 2 discussions by those 2 groups, I think is worthwhile. So that's the plan at this point, and don't leave yet. What I was going to do is I was going to suggest a date for the working group to meet. So before you go, since we're up next, is next week available for Judy, Gary, George? Yes.
Depends when.
I'll propose Wednesday the 6th.
Wednesday, July 6th, okay, I can make it too.
What time, Brian? It depends if you have a...
Give me a time.
You could do from 12, probably 11 until 12.
Just an hour?
Seventh, yeah. The 7th is relatively open, but.
I would propose the 7th.
That's a
So the
Thursday,
afternoon?
right?
Wait a minute.
7th, the afternoon of the 7th, or say 1 o'clock, 1:30?
Judy?
Let me look, hold on. The 7th?
Yeah. How does 1:30 look?
No, I can't.
Possibly have an evening meeting on that, very short staff at work, and
Does that work for,
Doesn't work for me, July 7th, no.
An evening, Skip?
yes.
Sorry.
does the evening work for you on the 6th? Gary?
Yes.
George?
Either one of those work for me, I'm gonna be gone.
Oh, neither one works? Should have spoke up sooner. What's that?
I didn't want to interrupt.
You're part of the group.
Part of the group, George.
What day are you back?
I'll be back on
I propose the 8th.
That's a Friday, no.
No, can't do Friday.
How about the following week, the 11th?
That's fine with me.
Evening?
I can do the 11th or 12th.
11th works for me. George?
Yeah.
What time, Skip?
6:30, whatever time.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Okay, all right, okay. So,
Where would we have it?
What, 6 PM? Wait a minute.
6 PM on July the 11th.
July 11th.
I can't do the evening on July 11th.
okay, that's a Monday, all right,
I can do it Monday.
okay.
We're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well,
We're working it.
okay, yeah.
13th, Wednesday?
I can't do the 13th.
The 12th does not work?
I could do the 12th,
Evening.
evening.
Gary?
7:30.
Skip?
7:30, the 12th, what day is the 12th?
Yep.
What day is it, Monday, Tuesday?
Well, Tuesday, sorry.
Tuesday. At 7:30?
Yep.
Yeah.
7:30 to 12th.
So that's the nursing home working group,
Yes.
July 12th, 7:30.
Have a location?
I expect we can do it in the commissioners.
We can do it in the commission.
Okay, and if, as soon as that meeting's done, I will be in touch with Chair of EFC, assuming we have a conclusion. If we don't have a conclusion, we'll need to meet again. But hopefully we'll have one, and then EFC can schedule from there.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you, Representative Sullivan, thank you, everybody, especially the working group. Okay, if we're all set, we'll move on to item number 8, review and approve the draft meeting minutes of the June 4th, 2022 public hearing and delegation meeting. So a motion by Representative Hearn, do I have a second on that motion? Okay, Representative Oxham, thank you. Are we any questions or comments on this motion and the minutes? I hope everybody's had a chance. Yes, Representative Spilsbury, please.
I'd like to ask for 2 very minor corrections on page 3.
Page 3.
In the 4th out of 5 paragraphs under number 4, in that first line, Representative Spilsbury asked what the incremental aggregate increase to the personnel costs are.
I get you an extra copy. Okay, thank you.
So personnel instead of personal. And on page 4, deep in the paragraph relating to item number 7, 2, 4, 6, 8 lines from the bottom, Representative Stapleton injected that he couldn't believe. So that's very much of an opinion. That was from me. So I'll take Representative Stapleton off the hook and ask you put my name in there.
Okay. Yes.
I did not hear any of those amendments.
Okay, Representative Spilsbury, Ms. Pelham didn't hear that.
If you could write them on the paper.
Yep, they're right here.
Okay, but did everybody hear the corrections that Representative Spilsbury wished to make? Any objections to those corrections? All right, seeing none, I will call, unless there's any other questions or comments, I will call for a vote on this motion. Voice vote, okay? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the June 4th, 2022 public hearing and delegation meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, motion is carried. Minutes are approved of June 14th.
For the record, I abstained, I wasn't here.
Okay, all right, make sure, Representative Hearn, that you note that Representative Sullivan abstains because he was absent from that meeting.
Wait, that was the June 14th?
Yeah, the June 14th, the public hearing and delegation meeting.
Oh.
And then also there is the EFC meeting minutes of June 24th, 2022. Now, Representative Gottlieb, several members are, the only thing normally, members of the EFC take a vote, so unless anybody has an objection, I'm gonna defer that to the EFC because I think a majority of the EFC is absent.
Right.
Yeah, they can vote on it too, but we do it as a courtesy here. Okay, next item on the agenda, any other old business? Any other old business? Okay, very good. Item 9, any new business? And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Sugar River Valley Technical Center here in Claremont at 111 South Street for the use of this room, and for CC Director Joshua Nelson and his staff covering this meeting, so hopefully members of the public get a better sense of what is going on with the delegation, either right now or they can watch it later as a recording. So unless there's anything else under old business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Representative O'Hearn. Do I have a second on that motion? Yes. Second by Representative Rollins. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Again, thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Motion to divide is clever, and I love your command of parliamentary procedure, because I just